Hey, in this week's episode, we are backing the wagon up, plumb back in history we are, and going down the trail with old Cookie, making what? Some Cowboy Chuckwagon trail stew, and oh my gosh, the flavors in there are so good. The meat's so tender. Come on, I'll save you a seat there in the wagon and we'll drive down there together. Hey, thank y'all for stopping by camp on a beautiful afternoon it is. I just got through with a 4.5-hour nap there in the teepee. It was really nice. But whoo-wee, what are we talking about today? Chuckwagon trail stew is what I call it. It's something that old Cookie would have fixed so many years going down the trail, 1870s to about really the 1890s before the cattle drive played out. Now we're going to doctor it up just a little, but it's pretty traditional as to what Cookie would have had. So hearty, so good for you, and that cold weather makes me want a bowl right now because it's pretty chilly out here today. So I hope y'all watched our breakfast quesadilla video because there was some important things happening there. Not only was it good grub, but the good folks at Ariat sponsored what? 2 $100 gift certificates, and I'm the winner. No, I'm not the winner. Okay. Folks, they always keep me looking sharp, and they do a lot for us. And you can go down there below, click the little link that says Cowboy Kent's Favorites, and they can have you looking good. But what about them 2 $100 winners, Shen? You think it is? Who are the winners? Mage, could we have a drum roll? No? Mage says he forgot to bring the drum. He did. Well, Glenn Richmond, he has always been a loyal subscriber, he has. And I don't know if this is Tom Indy, but that's his username. A longtime subscriber, over 6.5 years he is. And hey, we just thank y'all so much for tuning in and watching. And folks, you better watch all of them because you never know when we might throw something else back in there for you to get. So what are we talking about? Trail stew. Let's get after it. Going down the trail, Cookie riding up in that old wagon seat, when a lot of times they was making 14, 15 miles a day, he'd have to really put them mules or horses in a jig. What is a jig? Get them in a fast trot, get them on up the trail to where what? He could fix supper, because stew need to simmer, I would say at least 2 hours before everything to get really good and tender. The beef old Cookie had going down the trail so many times was some of that old Longhorn, and hey folks, they've changed a lot of their breeding from the time Cookie took them to what they got now. Them things are walking so far going up the trail to Abilene, Kansas to catch that railroad. They was sort of like beef jerky at times, but old Cookie, this was a treat to them cowboys, because what? Biscuits, beans, and coffee. That was nearly every day. So if he could go on up there and get ahead and get that old pot of stew on there to simmering along, and folks, there was an old famous recipe that come along from an old Chuckwagon trail so many years ago called Son of a Gun stew. Now, you can look it up. It's got 53,000 different ingredients that old Cookie might have put in there, and he used every piece of beef that he could find, from the tongue to the hock. So it is a lot of stuff in it, but it was traditional. It is something that he had. But to start...
Well, I have a question because we get this a lot. Did Cowboys eat a lot of beef on the trail?
Did Cowboys eat a lot of beef on the trail? Not unless he fell dead on the trail.
The cowboy?
No. The cow. Really, it wasn't the cow. Well, it could have been an old cow or a steer. You know, that beef was going to market. In South Texas at the time, that beef might have bring $14 a head. But if we could get him to Abilene, Kansas, up that Chisholm Trail, get him on that railroad car, let him go to Chicago or New York City, we're talking as much as nearly $41 a head. A little different than it is today, it is. But back then, folks, that was a lot of money. So beef was not made to eat on the trail. Sadie said, it's made for beef to eat today, isn't it, Sadie? Yes. So this is why I don't think they eat much beef. Sure, there was some dried beef that old Cookie could pack and take with him too. But a lot of times too, some of their stew meat may have substituted as wild game, deer, elk, rabbit, stuff like that, even rattlesnake. Oh my gosh, rattlesnake. But to start out with today, we got about a 3.5 pound chuck roast, and we got a pound of bacon. First of all, I need you to take that pound of bacon, let me move this Dutch oven over there, and just go ahead and dice it up. Now it is beef stew, but folks, you gotta have bacon in something every once in a while just to bring out a little more flavor, and we just need that little extra dab of grease that bacon's gonna bring to it as well. But remember, there was no noon meal going down the trail. I don't ever remember that anybody ever told me a story that the cowboys all stopped at noon and went through the drive-up window at McDonald's. No. They was lucky did Cookie say, hey, you better put that biscuit in your pocket today. It's going to be a long one before you get back for supper time. And you never knew what time supper time was. Cows don't wear a watch. They don't care what time it is. They be going off down through there and think, hey, this would be a good time to run off, make everybody late for supper. Because it was some desperate times at times, and it was some hard times, but I guarantee you, them guys are just like we are today. We wouldn't have traded it for nothing in the world. Sadie, does this suit you, the bacon cutting up in this procedure? So, the star of the show, what are we talking about? A chuck roast. Now, you could use arm roast, you could use a pot roast, you could use eye round roast, whatever you got. You could even use a neck roast. Old Cookie was happy just to see a roast come along. Now, it's got a roadmap in it where we're going to cut and do all this and try to separate that muscle to where everything remains tender. So just follow that line right on down here.
Are there any other specific cuts, like of wild game, that you would recommend?
If I was out there on the trail and say old Cookie and them boys was going up through there and they run, because it happened at times, run onto a big old herd of buffalo and somebody was to knock one down with one of them old lever actions. And what? Get out there and get that buffalo hump, get that good meat off the hind quarter, something like that, and just go ahead and go to making stew meat out of it. Because folks, hey, they had to get by with what they had, but buffalo, elk, deer, it makes good stew, it does. But don't forget that other stuff like rabbit and squirrel, because I bet you old Cookie used it going down the trail. You can see the grain of this meat is sort of going this way, so we're going to cut and then cut in half. We're going to put it all in this little blue bowl. No, Dookie, the blue bowl is not for you. Let me get her chunked up. We'll get to baking this on the fire. We have got the burner on high, as y'all can see. It is highly up here in my eyebrows, it is. But the bacon has browned up a little. Be careful not to burn all your fingers. Go ahead and put them in the stew pot right there itself. Now, old Cookie might have cooked this in a Dutch oven. And some of you be thinking, well, why didn't you do that in a Dutch oven today? Because that's lighter and I can lift it and run quicker. But hey, the old bean pot been around a long time, it has. So we'll get this bacon in there, and if any hits the ground, don't y'all worry about it, because I have a lot of good taste testers here that'll pick it up. Well, you seen me chuck the meat up, and then what? Went over and got me 2 or 3 handfuls of flour. Incorporate it well. You say, why are we flouring it if we're going to put it in a stew? The flour is going to help sort of bind some of this together, but also as a thickening agent as it cooks. I seasoned this with some of our original seasoning, but if you ain't got some and you can't get none today, get you some salt, pepper, a little garlic powder, you'll be fixed up. So go ahead and just ease her in there. Don't be trying to get none of that grease splattered up on your fingers. And Sadie keeps thinking that there's something in that tree, Mom. Sadie, she says there might be a bear up there that she's got treed. We need to brown this, as Shan would say, halfway done. So keep her stirred around. You can't just run off and leave it. If there wasn't enough bacon grease left in there that you need, put you a little vegetable oil, a little lard, something in there to go with it to where you can keep that meat stirred and keep it browning. Well, I'm sitting down on the job, I am. Meat has got what I'd call just right browned up. Oh my gosh, that is hot, folks. The meat has ready to go in the pot, it is. Make sure you try to get all them good crumbs off the bottom. And what do you do that with if you ain't glazing with white wine and got one of them what you call fond? You get a mesquite spatula. They work wonders, because you can see we ain't hurting our seasoning none. But we loosening all that up on the bottom. Get you a good spoon. While y'all wasn't watching, I put about 32 ounces of beef broth in there, I did, because we're going to need it. Go ahead and get that meat, and you can hear that that pot is getting hot because there is some seasoning going on, but my gosh, my boot is getting hot as well. So we're going to get it up here instead of standing it by Christine there. To this same Dutch oven that we are getting this meat out of, to get the maximum amount out of them onions, instead of just throwing it right in there and saying we're going to put some onions in there, what? We're going to let them have a little time in that there meat grease with that bacon fat that's rendered off there. Put it over here and let them brown up a little, and to that we're going to add another edible ingredient we are, called mushroom. I hear you say, really? Cookie found some mushrooms? I'm sure he did if they passed by some of them cedar trees. Maybe it was some of them morel mushrooms that was growing just right, because them things is oh so good. You keep an eye on the onion, Shan, and I'll get to go over and chop up the garlic, and I'll meet y'all back at the fire. Well, to the onions, we put about 4 garlic cloves, minced them right in there, give it a stir, put them in last because you're going to let them onions cook 4 or 5 minutes to where they get sort of translucent. But here come them shrooms they are, about 8 ounces of them they was. Now we're going to let them cook for just a minute, and then we're going to add a little flour sprinkle back in there because we're going to want to thicken this broth up even some more as it cooks. So just let them onions sit in there like they are and add them shrooms and let everything get a little browning action to it. And then we'll sprinkle that flour on there like when? Like right now. So just give it a little, watch out there. I don't know which way it's going. For y'all, those might be guessing the wind is out of the southwest, so that's be pretty good. And you can let them mushrooms just get coated good with that flour. Just don't sprinkle it all right in the same place. And just let her come to a slow little cooking there. Well, the shrooms and the onions have cooked up nice. That flour give them a good coating. Just go ahead and dump them over in there because we're going to need all that flavor. And now going down the trail, old Cookie would have probably maybe had some pinto beans. And that's about it that he'd have put in there to go with that. But I told you we was going to fancy this up a little. So I like to combine the flavors of what? Some kidney beans along with some hominy. Because folks, hominy's been around forever and ever. And y'all do know how they make hominy, right, Shan?
It's soaked in lye.
Yes, and a lot of times they would just also cook that lye and that hominy down in a charcoal tree limb. I mean, just an old trunk that had been sitting there. Fill it full of water because it got that charcoal in there, that old black residue that's left. Boil that corn down there to where it swells up, and then you just strain it around and get after it. But hey, you can't go wrong with that. Let me get this out of the way. And if y'all have told me time after time, can you make anything without putting jalapenos in it? Folks, it's really been hard. It has. But today is y'all's lucky day because I'm not going to put no jalapenos in there. Would Cookie? Yeah, he'd have went over at them dried peppers that we showed you on that video, and there'll be a link right up there above to all them peppers that we love to use. And he'd have tore off some of them guajilos, them chili de balls, cascaveles. He'd have crumbled them all in there. But for y'all, I'm going to tame it down. I'm going to use me some rotel tomatoes. Now, y'all know what them are? Some people don't have them readily available in their grocery stores. Diced green chilies and tomatoes. But also, if y'all ain't going to let me have no jalapenos, we got to have some hatch green chilies. It just ain't going to work if you ain't got them. So, let me go ahead. But one other thing I need to tell you about. Tomato sauce. It's always in every soup or stew that comes along, or stewed tomatoes, pardon me. But old Cookie, he probably wouldn't have had that unless he had some old dried tomatoes or something like that that he could incorporate to put back in there. So let me get it all in there. We'll be good to go. So if they'd restocked the wagon and they'd come across the Red River right there on the Chisholm Trail going north, there was an old store there. What was it called? The Fleetwood store. So all them wagons, they try to stock up, and old Cookie, if he got there before everybody else that come before him on the drive, and he'd get him some taters if he could, because he needed him some taters for some stew. And if anybody had any carrots, he'd have grabbed them too. But before we put that in there, something old Cookie might not have had, some of that Justin Wilson Lee and Perrons, because I guarantee you that stuff is going to be good. You got to have it in there. How much? The right amount. Y'all know that by now. So we had 4 russet potatoes and some carrots. Just chunked them up there. In they go. Now, my daddy used to tell me when you could make a stew, you could fill it full of carrots and tomatoes and use half as much meat and nobody'd ever know the difference. Well, folks, you ain't going to have no trouble finding the meat in this. And I remember we seasoned that meat right there at the first. We did. We went ahead and got that with that flour coating. But let's give it another sprinkling of original to season them taters up and them carrots just a little. And we're going to put it on what we would call a slow walk. A slow walk, you say? That's what I heard old Cookie say one time when I was cooking with some folks. And the old fellow that used to cook, he said, "You got that on a slow walk there, Button?" And y'all are asking yourself, Button? What is a button? Well, a button is not only something that goes on a shirt, but it is someone who is quite a bit younger than the guy that he's talking to. And that's why they called him a button. And a slow walk is a simmer. So now y'all know all the cowboy terminology that I know. We'll get her to going, and you can see this is pretty thick, but it's pretty concentrated. So what? We're going to add some water. How much? Just exactly that much right there. And you can see now everything is covered. It's just like when you're making beans, and we've told you so many times, If you're going to have to add water or broth back to this, go ahead and bring it over to the fire. Keep it hot so when you pour it in there, you ain't got that problem to where it slows it down and it cooks evenly throughout. You're going to cook this probably over, if you're at the house, like a medium-low fire, maybe medium. Here it's pretty hard to judge what we got going. It's either licking your eyebrows or not hardly at all. But now is when the time to when you put in some bay leaves, because we need them in there for the flavor. Go ahead and cover this. Put it on, like I say, a slow walk and let her cook maybe about an hour to hour and 30 minutes and everything. Just when the meat sort of gets fork tender and that all them flavors have blended together. Ooh-wee. Can y'all smell it? Let me help you out. Lou says I can smell it. Well, folks, I ain't gonna just dive right in there to that. Y'all seen me do too many of them before to where it stick to the roof of your mouth and you can't talk for about a week. But I dug out 4 pieces of little beef for my good helpers today. And Lou, come on, sugar, you're right here handy. There you go. There is the duker. No, say that is the dukers. Here is the beaks. And where is the mage? Always got to look for you. Good job, mage. Okay, everybody done a good job. No, that's it. That's all you get, I promise. I thank you, pups, for helping me out. Next thing you know, you'll be jumping the rope, skipping a song, and I must stay. Because I can't go no more, I'm going to come back up here and get me another bite of this because, woo-wee, that was some fine dining, and I got all this good help that has been here with me. They have done a glorious job, they have. Thank y'all for taking time out of your busy day to stop by camp and watch our videos. We never take it for granted, we don't. And everything that we used in this video will be listed down there in the little link below, where you can get over there to the tap and go what? KentRollins.com. Hit up there on the recipes tab. It'll take you to all of them. There's so many there I can't count them, but this will be there too. As always, I tip my hat to all our servicemen and women and all the veterans that have kept that old flag a-flying. No matter where we may be, I appreciate you one and all, and may you stay safe. For the rest of you, get on in here. You know it's fitting to happen. We're going to have a big old hug, and guess what? God bless you each and every one, and I'll see you down the Cowboy Trail Chuckwagon stew. She says, I know there is. Y'all don't have that keen sense of hearing. It's a grasshopper. But we've put in some, I don't know what the word is. But, oh my gosh, we're not doing that part of it, we are. Sometimes I get brain fart. We have launched some new apparel, some t-shirts, sweatshirts. We got you fixed up, so be sure and check them out.